everybody, welcome back to the Trial and Error podcast. I'm Emma Grace.
And I'm Austin Gergen.
And today we have a very special episode because we have our first guest episode with the one and only, well, not only, because there's two of them, our spouses. Say hello.
Greetings.
Hi. We today are going to be talking about basically work-life balance, but when your work is school, whether that be you getting a PhD, law school, medical school. I think a lot of these questions can really apply to any of them. Just basically what it's like to do friendships and family while you are in a tough schooling situation. So first, Natalia is going to tell us a little bit about herself.
Hello, everybody. I'm Natalia, and I am Austin's wife. I am not a law girly. I like fine arts. I do art therapy, and I love all things creative, artsy, and I'm Puerto Rican. I speak Spanish.
Say something in Spanish for us.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
I can do that.
I was going to try to say subscribe to the podcast, and then I didn't remember how to say subscribe.
Well, while you're thinking on that, Nathaniel, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Nathaniel. I'm the one and only, clearly, husband of Emma Grace Estabrooks. I work in the affordable housing industry, so I've been out of college for about 3 years, give or take a month or two, and I've been slaving away at my desk job for a while now.
He's a finance boy.
I met my wife approximately 400 feet from here in this library. I met on the third floor studying. I was studying for probably a finance test, actually. And this most excellent human being approached me and said, marry me. So I did.
So accurate.
I met her studying. I don't know what else to say.
All right, Natalia, how did you meet me?
I met you at church. I walked in one day, and I was like, maybe today is the day that I'll meet my husband. And I saw him across the room, and I said, ooh, who's that cute Asian boy over there?
Plot twist.
Turns out he wasn't Asian, but he did end up being my husband. So.
All's well that ends well, right? So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about what it's like to be married to someone in law school or that considered to go to law school? Because I don't think while we were dating y'all necessarily knew about our plans. I mean, Nathaniel kind of did, but what it was like deciding to get married to someone that you knew was probably going to go to law school.
Well, for me, I remember the first time that Austin brought up in a conversation when we were dating that he wanted to go to law school, and I was like, absolutely not. I was like, no way. I want you to actually be around. You're going to be gone for so many hours at a time. It's going to be too much work. You won't be able to have a family. So I kind of freaked out a little bit, but it ended up being okay. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, so that's good.
What about you, Nathaniel?
It was sort of a package deal. I feel like I knew that if I married you, I was going to have to be the spouse of a law student, because I'm pretty sure you were talking about going to law school. I'm pretty convinced you were going to do that even before we started dating. So I kind of always knew, like, if I marry Emma Grace, then I'm going to be the husband of a law student for a number of years. So it wasn't like that big of a surprise, I don't think.
He was committed to being my sugar daddy.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, now that you guys have learned a little bit about our spouses, we're going to move on to some questions for them. So the first question is, what is it like to be working while your spouse is in school, and how has it changed your dynamic?
I don't know how much different it is than if you were in the workforce, because, you wake up in the morning and you both go off and we both do our two different things all day, and then we come back together at the end of the day. So you being in law school, at least from like the day-to-day work week standpoint, isn't particularly different than if you were working, I don't think. I think the big difference comes in more like over the weekends, actually, while you're still slaving away, trying to study and cram and understand all the things you're learning, while I'm turned off from my job, and it's not, I'm like ready to like hang out and go have fun and do things and be social, and you're buried in a book somewhere. I think that's kind of more where the difference and the difficulty lies than during the week. Like 9 to 5, or I guess in our case, like 8 to 5 is a little bit not any different, I don't think, than it would be if you were working a job.
And what's kind of funny about me and Nathaniel is that he works from home, but I have to go to school, and I'm at school that whole time. So it's like the person that's in school, it like has the 9 to 5 out of house schedule, as to where when I come home, he's sitting in the spot I left him in because he works from home. So that's something kind of funny about us. What about you, Natalia? What do you feel like your dynamic's like now that he's in law school, and what is it like to be working while he's in law school?
Well, when he wasn't in law school, I was still working, and he wasn't working full time, so he would cook me breakfast every morning, and that was nice. I missed that. But other than that, I feel like it's kind of been beneficial actually for me to be working full time, because it gives him time during the day to like stay at school and not feel pressure that he has to come home and spend time with me, so he can just stay at school. And he's really good about trying to do most of his work at school, so he doesn't bring it home at nights or anything. So I think that he enjoys having that opportunity.
What are some of the best ways that Emma Grace and I balance school and personal life?
I think, like I said before, you're good at, you try really hard to keep all of your books and stuff at school, and sometimes you stay late at school because you have a lot to do and a lot to study, or you're writing a paper, but you try to keep most of it over there, so that way when you come home you can just focus on us and spending time together and having fun together. So you're pretty good at sort of separating. And I know sometimes like in your mind you're not, because you will be thinking about like, oh, I have all of this other stuff that I need to do for school, and you still have to work on the weekends and stuff a lot too. But I think you do a pretty good job of trying to get out of the house when you're studying, so that way when you're home you don't necessarily have to feel the pressure to be studying there.
Austin, would you say that you bring home law school, like it is beneficial for you to talk to Natalia about the things going on at school, or is a part of your separation process like not really unpacking that with her?
Yeah, I don't really talk too much about like cases that we're reading or anything like that when I'm home. What I do, if anything, is just bring up like, oh, this stupid thing happened in a case, because people are stupid sometimes. But in terms of like trying to process law school with another person, I don't think I do that with Natalia.
Yeah, I feel like you have enough people within the law school that you talk about it all day. So once you come home, you're like, I kind of want to not have to talk about law school at home as well.
What about you, Nathaniel? What are some of the best ways I balance work life and personal life?
So I think it goes back to the first question, and also is very similar to what Natalia said. You do a very good job of kind of having like a night and day relationship with law school. So it's like when you get home, whether it's, you know, at 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock or whatever it might be, the study element and like the actual learning element of law school you put behind you. So it's not a matter of like coming home and then you're cracking out another book and reading until 10 o'clock or whatever. Like, you have a home life and you have a school life, and you do a very good job of delineating where the boundaries of those two things are. And you do a really good job, I think, of prioritizing like life over school life more so. You don't make law school like your identity, which I think would have a different effect maybe in some ways in the coming home from school part of the day. I think if you were more identified with law school, that would possibly be a little more challenging in some ways.
Fair. And on that train of thought, what are ways that we could be better? Nathaniel, you're in the hot seat.
Generally or in law school?
In law school!
I didn't say I had an answer for either. I don't know. You do a pretty good job. Like I don't sit here and think about like, oh, Emma Grace sucks at this thing in law school. I don't know. And how about this? You need to be more confident. You're good at what you put your mind to, and you're very intelligent. And you ought. Maybe I shouldn't say should and ought. You could consider leaning into how much of a badass you are a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I was 100% expecting you to say, girly, you need to stop cleaning all the frickin' time.
All right, and Natalia, what could I do better?
I don't know. You're pretty good. I mean, I think sometimes I would like to hear more about, I don't know, fun or interesting things that happen in class. I know it's like hard to unpack all that because you have so many things that you learned in one day, but I like hearing the funny stories about like, oh, this person got called on and they said this really silly thing or something like that. So I always think that that's funny, but that's not necessarily anything that you need to do better. It's just something that I enjoy listening to.
Okay, we've perfected everything. Thanks for coming to the pod. Bye.
Yeah, my takeaway is that we're the best spouses ever.
I will say from the perspective that me and Austin are together all day at school, but we're friends with one another's spouses and we hang out outside of school, I think we do a good job of our personalities don't change very much. Like we stick to who we are in whatever setting we are in. But I feel like law school is really intense and everyone like is very debatey at school. If that's a word, debatey. I just made it, thank you. And so by the time I get home, like me and Nathaniel, our banter used to be very much like something stupid, like which ice cream flavor is the best, and we would go hard on that. And now I'm like, oh, I don't want to debate anyone ever again. As to where I feel like it just flames the fire for Austin. He's like, yes, debating all day. So that's a way that we're kind of different when it comes to like balancing what we're like at school versus at home.
That's funny. I was having a conversation conversation with someone the other day about why I wanted to do litigation. And I was like, hopefully it'll tire me out enough that I quit fighting with Natalia.
Accurate.
All right, we'll move on to the next question here. What do you think Austin and Emma Grace are like in class? And how do you think it's different than how we behave at home?
Immigrates, you're really good at like relegating your mental energy. Like you have a gas tank of mental energy and you know where to use it. So I think you are way more inclined to like get into like I say argument, but not like a negative sense. It's like more like argumentative, like debatey, like intellectual mindset when you're at school, because that's where you're using that fuel, that mental energy. Whereas when you get home, and this is in contrast to how you would have been before you started law school, when you get home, it's like, I'm not going to have an in-depth argument about this philosophical concept because I don't have the energy for that anymore, and I need to save that energy for tomorrow. So I think you're a lot more chill at home than you would be at law school, because you have to be less chill at law school, and you do a good job of saving your energy for that.
I think that's both a good and bad thing for me and Nathaniel. The bad part is that I think we really connected over having deep conversations about what we think on certain topics, but it's good in the sense that I'm kind of a jerk. Like, when I am reading and I go into that critical mindset, sometimes it takes me a couple minutes. Okay, but sometimes it takes me a couple minutes to come out of it, and I'm kind of like intense with Nathaniel. I'll be like, no, it's not that way. Do blah, 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 blah. And I'll be something stupid like how to put clothes in the washer or something. And I like bring that energy to like our marriage. And I'm like, wait, I need a couple minutes to like recalibrate and be like sweet wife Emma Grace and not overly critical, debatey Emma Grace.
Yeah, I feel like for Austin, I don't know, I feel like it has helped you recently. I feel like you genuinely you've always enjoyed like debating and being argumentative. Like you don't do it, like, it doesn't come from a place of like anger or anything like that. Like you just have like genuine fun debating topics with people. So I think that having the opportunity to do that at school with people does make it better, because you come home and you've like done that enough. So I mean, sometimes we still like will debate about like random stupid things, but for the most part I feel like you don't feel like you find the need to do that at home with me, and I appreciate that, because sometimes I enjoy it, but sometimes I'm too tired for that. So I am glad that you don't feel like you have to do that with me. I feel like you are different in school versus at home. I obviously don't like see you at school, but I can imagine that you just love intellectual debates so much, and you get really intense and you're just like going at it, talking a million miles a minute, versus like at home, like what people don't see is that like you're actually like really sweet and caring, and then you like always want to hug, and if I don't hug you tight enough you're like sad, or you just like want to like
He's
yeah,
a simp for his wife.
he's soft and sweet, and he does the cooking, and then he just wants to come snuggle with me. And so I think that at school, obviously, you're not going around telling people, will you scratch my head? I'm tired today. Will you give me a little back massage? Versus at home, you'd be like, I made you some dessert. And I'm like, oh, you knew that I needed it today. So I feel like you're just more like sweet and mushy and lovey-dovey at home. And probably, I would assume, not in class in the middle of a debate.
I can attest to that, I believe. I will say this conversation has focused a lot on like debate and that kind of thing. And I think me and Austin kind of go about that very similarly, but also differently. When we say debate about law school, yeah, sure, there is a part that if you want to speak up, you can. And I would say that Austin probably does that more than me. Like he likes to externalize and like go through what's going on internally. But you don't have to be a debate personality to go to law school. For me, I'm not as much like that. I'm not someone that really talks it out. I'm much more of an internal processor. And what I mean by like critical thinking and debate is when you're reading a case, you're ultimately reading a rule and how a court applied that rule, and you have to be thinking to yourself, like, does this logic make sense? Because that's what your professor is going to be asking you in class. So when we say debate, we also just mean like you have like a critical thinking cap and then like lovey-dovey at home cap. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we mean when we're going between the two.
Yeah, and I'll add that for me, I'm probably one of the 3 or 4 most talkative people in most of my classes. And I feel like part of that is just trying to get other people to say what they're thinking too. Like I'll say something probably a little more provocative than what I actually think, so that way other people will feel the need to say something. So that way I get the opportunity to hear the other side's like logic and what people who I don't necessarily agree with are thinking on a topic, because otherwise they would stay quiet if I would just like towed a certain line.
What advice would you give family, friends, or spouses of those who are about to go to law school?
Just to be patient with the fact that they might be tired. More tired than you are, in fact, at the end of the day. Well, this is also from a spousal perspective. I think it does vary, obviously, depending on the relationship. But I think patience with understanding that they're going to be more tired, more mentally tired than you might be after a long day. But also, like, really intentional and aggressive support from the standpoint of going, like, above and beyond to say, hey, you're smart, you're doing a good job, hang in there, keep it up, don't give up, endure, rather than, like, passively just ignoring that it's existing. Like, instead of just being like, oh, this is your day job, that's fine, like, and you're home and it's whatever, like, actively thinking, like, this is a really hard thing they're doing. And, like, odds are they could probably use some support, whether that means vacuuming and, like, actively showing support through, like, taking care of something for them, or like verbally telling them, like, you're doing great, like, hang in there.
Or if it's me, bringing my cat to my lap in moments of need.
Or throwing your cat at you.
Either one works. What would you say, Natalia, to someone that their spouse is about to go to school?
I would say don't be scared, I guess, because, like, I had this perception that if someone goes to law school, they just, like, that's their life, and it's 100 hours a week, and you just, you know, you're never going to see them again. And it's really not like that. It's been not nearly as, I guess, like, I still feel like we have plenty of time to spend with each other, to spend with friends. You can still have a school life balance, and it's probably more difficult in this season, of course, because there is so much studying that you have to do. But overall, I think it's not as scary or as horrible as I thought that it would be to be with someone who's in such an intense field, intense program, writing-wise and studying-wise, reading-wise, and all of that.
Yeah, I would add, too, that if you're a friend or family member of someone, you're probably going to have to be more intentional about reaching out and starting conversations, because there's a lot going on. And at least for me, I have do not disturb on the entire day while I'm at law school, and only like 7 or 8 people can text me. And I don't take the initiative to start conversations outside of that because I'm busy replying to the ones that I missed during the day. If you want to maintain a relationship at the current strength that you have, you're going to have to be a little more intentional about it, I think.
Yeah, and just ask them, like, what they need in a certain day. You know, like, sometimes, Emma Grace, if you and I are hanging out, we just, you know that you've had a tough week and you just want to do something chill and stay in, like, PJs and just watch TV or something relaxing. And so just ask them, like, hey, what do you need this week? Like, what do you want this week? Do you want to just do something relaxing and chill, or do you need to get out of the house? So just ask them, like, what are they feeling like doing that they might have not have time for during the week?
Yeah, Natalia's absolutely right. It's kind of the other side of the coin. Advice I think we both give to spouses is that Natalia and Nathaniel, it's so hard, their names are so similar. I'm like, Natalia, and who is that I'm married to? Oh yeah, Nathaniel are really good at being go with the flow. Like, sometimes me and Nathaniel will have, like, more of a fancy date set up, and I'll come home and I'm like, listen, I'm so exhausted. Can we just, like, watch the new episode of Mandalorian? And he's like, absolutely. Like, he just kind of goes with my energy levels, which, as he explained, takes a lot of patience, but he's really good at that. I feel like Natalia's like that too. Like, they're just kind of there for us when we're at home, and they understand that we can't be super attentive when we're not at home.
This next question is a little more fun and hypothetical, but what do you think your spouse would be doing if they weren't in law school?
I mean, I think you would be doing something in philosophy or theology, because I know that's what you like. I feel like you would probably be getting your master's, and then you would want to go get your PhD, because I feel like you love to learn and you love to study things and you like to process different ideas. So I feel like you would still be doing something in that field.
What do you think my actual career path would end up being, though?
I don't know. I feel like I can't even really see you as anything other than law now, but I feel like you would have been a good professor. I feel like you would have ended up being a professor of something.
I feel like Austin's the kind of person that wears multiple hats. It's hard to see him doing, like, one thing. Like, even though he's going to law school, he's also interested in politics, so he might be doing some of both. Mm-hmm. And if he wasn't in law school, I could see him doing something like theology related or working at a church, but also still doing his side hustle gigs having to do with more, like, hands-on, like, electronic audio, video kind of stuff. I could see him
Yeah.
being a professor and having a side hustle doing that and
Yeah.
like being very active in his church. Like,
He probably would be doing like 100 things
Yeah.
at once because he would just get bored if he didn't have something different to do every day.
This is a hard question because, like I said earlier, it's always been kind of baked into the proposition that you'd be a law student. Like ever since I knew you were planning to go to law school. So it's hard
I
to think.
had a slight crisis. You don't remember that?
You did, and I do remember, and I'm going to talk about it.
I was just checking him, just testing.
But I think there's a bunch of answers. So the crisis in question, I believe, is when you thought about pursuing a postgraduate degree in philosophy, which is interesting because I think Natalia basically just said the same thing about Austin. But I could see you doing that. I could see you becoming I could definitely see you becoming like a philosophy brain, like postgraduate and then a professor type, or even like a researcher writing papers about like the essence of bees or something like that.
I feel like as someone who's been around Emma Grace in a more like friend area, I feel like you would be really good in the mental health field. Like, I think that you would be a really good therapist or a counselor because, I don't know, whenever we have a conversation, like, you just make it so easy to open up and, like, just spill out all your guts and be like, we, like, sit together at coffee and cry. And
Oh, thanks. Hopefully I can do that for my clients. XOXO. I'll just be billing them $250 an hour.
So I feel like from that side of you that I've seen, you're just really good at listening and giving advice. So something like that I could see you doing.
That is true. There's also the classic physical therapist angle because you would have made a good physical therapist, I think.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do when I was little. I will add one thing that I've said to Nathaniel is I like kind of am sad about the fact that I'll never really work with my hands. Like, I would love, wouldn't that be so cool if I, like, knew how to build houses? Like, that would be
What's
so
stopping
cool.
you from learning?
I know. Well, what I would really like to do is be a florist. I think that'd be so fun. But I will not be doing that.
I wanna
because
see you-
I don't want to be happy.
We've got a couple weddings coming up, so we can practice.
It's true.
I want to see you building houses. I could see you becoming like a world-renowned plumbing contractor.
I know. Austin, what do you think you'd be doing? Anything to add?
I don't know. I feel like I have gone like all in on politics and tried to break into like local politics wherever I was and working on congressional campaigns and trying to set myself up so I could make a run eventually.
It's just in his veins, guys. The politics. Red, white, and blue, those veins are. Okay, what strategies have you all found to be the most effective in managing household responsibilities? And this could be, I think the most obvious is cleaning, but also just like planning your weeks together, figuring out food. How's that changed since law school, and how do you all deal with that?
Well, for us, I'm not good at cooking. I'm just not. Like, I try, but I just somehow manage to mess every meal up somehow. Like, what did I do the other day that was dumb? And you were like, why did you do that? I'm like, I just thought that it would work. I think I left the pasta water in the pasta. And then I tried to, like, I know.
She was making mac and cheese, and instead of like straining it before, she just left all of the water that she boiled the pasta in the mac and cheese.
In my
when she
head,
put
it
the
was
sauce
going to
in.
make the sauce, like, I don't know. It was going
This
to
is
be better
boxed
for
mac
the...
and cheese.
I thought that it would be
You're
better
called
for the
the
sauce
arts.
that way, and then it just ended up being really, really watery, and it was not the move. And I don't know why that my brain just doesn't comprehend food well.
Pop off, queen. You tried. We all
I
start
did
somewhere.
try. So I can decorate cookies though.
Oh, she can.
But so Austin really kind of has taken over the cooking, food, kitchen aspect of it. He likes to take control of that, and I'm happy that he does because I don't like to. I think we kind of had a sort of a trial and error period. Haha, that's funny. I didn't mean to do that. Of like, okay, what do you like doing? What do you not like doing? And so we've discovered like he will do cooking and dishes because I don't like touching dirty dishes, and like wet food freaks me out. So I'll do the laundry, and like I like to mop. Okay, I'm not great at getting the laundry done.
He's
but
giving her criminally offensive side eye. Bombastic side eye.
It's been a busy week, so our laundry has been piling up, but
It's been a busy 8 months, I guess.
Austin!
I try to get it done. I like to mop, so I mop. I organize, and
She's also very good at helping Austin make a schedule for his social life.
yeah, exactly.
Don't even look at me like that, Austin.
secretary.
I'm like, we're doing this on Wednesday and this on Thursday and this on
Every
Friday.
time I'm like, hey, Austin, are you free? He's like, I don't know, ask Natalia.
That's because I need permission, not because I need a schedule manager.
What about you, Nathaniel?
I think the biggest thing that always kind of just goes a lot farther. It's a good investment. It takes 15 minutes and it pays off more than that. Is just taking a couple minutes at the beginning of each week and saying, what are we actually doing this week? What are you doing? What am I doing? And kind of figuring out like whether it's intentional time to spend with each other or just to make sure that we're not double booking each other. That goes a really long way. And then tying that into meal prep and making sure we're actually eating food that doesn't cost $20 a plate because we're lazy. All those sorts of things, they combine to make a much easier experience, I think, for both of us.
I feel like me and Nathaniel's relationship's pretty unique in two ways when it comes to this. The first one is that we've always been relatively independent of one another. Nathaniel's a huge extrovert. He has a million friends. And so our Sundays look like sitting down and him being like, okay, when do I need to be home with you? And when can I see my friends? And so we tend to have like one or two super intentional nights or dinners together. And then the rest of the week, it's kind of just figuring out what each other's schedules are and revolving around that. We don't do a ton of, we do things out and about together, but we tend to also hang out a lot separately, which I think is really good for us because when we're with each other, and when we're not, we're not. You'll find that the first few years of marriage, one of the hardest parts is when you're at home, when to know, hey, it's okay to be on your phone right now versus it's actually kind of rude if you pull out your phone right now, or are we just watching TV next to each other, or is this like a movie night, date night kind of thing? So figuring out that is really important, especially with law school, and I feel like we're kind of unique in that we go the more independent route, but it just works for us. And then the other thing is Nathaniel and I are pretty equal when it comes to all household chores and things, and I actually really find it interesting that Austin tends to do most of it. I don't think it's necessarily the stereotype that the dudes in law school and the girls cooking and cleaning all the time. It's kind of more dynamic than that. For Nathaniel and I, since we've been married 2 years now, we've gone through seasons where I cook all the meals, seasons where he's cooked all the meals, and seasons where it's half and half. And right now he's definitely doing a lot more of the cooking, but when we first got married and I was in undergrad and my life was easy, I was doing all the cooking, and then when we were both working like full-time jobs, we would split it. So I really think there's not like a set thing one person does all the time. You just have to be a person that can go with the flow in your marriage and be like, hey, this just makes sense for me to do this right now. And we'll just see how it goes in the future.
Communication above all else.
Truth.
All right, and this is the last question. If you were in law school, are there any classes you think you would be better at than your spouse?
I don't even know what classes you're taking. Can I have some examples?
Criminal law, torts, civil procedure. What else is there?
He's looking at me. He's like, what else is there?
This bodes well.
Property, contracts, lawyering and professionalism.
Writing.
Yeah. Legal writing, legal research.
Underwater basket weaving.
That's an elective.
But you can still take that?
No, that is not a
You're
thing.
telling me there's still a chance?
Everyone come to UT Law. We have what did you say? Underwater basket weaving?
I don't know. I don't really think I would be better than Austin at any of the classes. Maybe the criminal one, because I would find it interesting enough that I would actually like pay attention and do the reading and do the research or whatever I have to do. I enjoy writing an argument. So I don't know if you have a class that like you have to do like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
We do. That's what I thought for you is that I don't know necessarily better, but I think you'd be on par with Austin for sure when you would learn how to write like we do. I feel like you'd be a good writer.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like you probably don't even know what civil procedure is,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like some things in civil procedure are common sense and some really aren't. And I feel like you're a common sense person, and I feel like you would maybe not get your head stuck in all the weeds the way maybe me and Austin do. I could see you being like, no, these are the facts. This is what it
Yeah.
is, and maybe better than
Yeah.
us. What do you think, Austin? What would Natalia be good at?
Probably criminal law. She's got like pretty good sense of justice internally, and most of it is just trying to figure out what you think about justice should be. At least for my class, it was. So
I don't think I'd be better than you at pretty much any of it. But if I had a chance, it would probably be in contracts or property, just because that's tangent/directly related to what I spend my actual career doing. Specifically contracts. Like I think I'd be pretty good at that.
I feel like you find contracts interesting, but property, like there have already been a few times this semester where Nathaniel will explain something to me and how it actually works in real life when it comes to property. He's like, oh, I know what that is. Oh, what's your book saying about that? Because we do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're saying. He knows the lingo more than I do, that's for sure.
I will say, property to me feels the most like learning a different language. Like you're just like
'Cause
figuring.
it's so archaic.
It's based a lot on like English law, and even quite a bit is based on like Roman law. And we didn't get too deep into the history in our class. We have a bunch of stupid rules that still exist just because they've been around for 800 years.
All right. Well, do you have any last second thoughts and opinions? Because you might not ever be invited again if
I was
you
going to
deem
say,
me bad.
speak now or forever hold your
Yeah.
peace.
What are you most excited for after law school, like being done with law school, for all of you?
Making money. I'm sick of being
I
broke.
agree.
It's not even making money for me. It's just being on and being off. Like, for me, if I'm on the clock, it's very easy for me to just put the effort I'm supposed to be putting into a thing. It's much harder when there's a paper due on Monday and you have a week to write it, but you just want to dork around for a long time because there's no actual time pressure.
I think why I said money so quickly is when you're married, you have goals for yourself and you have goals for you and your spouse. And I feel like my next personal goal is obviously to create a work life out of my education. But as a couple, you know, our next goal is to get a house. So I'm like, 2 incomes would not be bad for that. But yeah.
See, I'm excited because as soon as Austin starts to work, I'm going to retire. And then in a couple years, once we have enough money, I want to open up my own like art studio and be able to do art therapy with the community and different things like that. So obviously we need money for that first. I probably won't actually retire, but it'll be nice to be able to feel comfortable financially so that we can work on our goals.
All right, y'all. Well, I think that finishes the pod for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 3, where we were joined by our spouses. The past few episodes have been much more like get to know us, get to know what it's like to be in law school. We're going to be shifting gears pretty soon into more what is the law, how to create your own philosophy with law, ranking 1L classes, that sort of thing. So I hope you enjoyed this little stint of personal life stuff, spouses, what it's like to be a law student, and we will be back next week.
Be sure to we have a YouTube channel, share us with your friends, and then review on your podcast app of choice. That really helps us reach more people. Have a good one.
Bye!
Bye.
Say bye!
See you.
Adios.